Have you ever considered any real freedoms? Freedoms from the opinion of others, even from the opinions of yourself? From the title, you might be thinking the visual novel we're referencing is Class of '09, but we aren't descending to that level of hell yet. No, today, boys, what's going on? Boys, arm yourselves. Today, we are thinking about life using or prompted by a visual novel I went through twice. The visual novel is titled You and Me and Her, a love story. You find the media you need when you need it. And I think I needed this visual novel because it made me angry in a way I haven't felt angry in a long while. A different sort of anger. This anger was or is because I'm still feeling it, or an eating too much sneaky hot sauce anger. It creeps up on you. I noticed it was making me angry, but I thought it was making me angry on a rational level. And then I realized I was shivering with anger. And that still hasn't let up. And it's not because the visual novel is bad. I think it's very good, actually. It's one of the few visual novels I would recommend. But holy shit, it points at some ideas that make me very angry. And angry on a level I'm not used to feeling angry. This is a weird sort of anger I'm feeling right now. Typically, whenever I'm lost on something, I will look at related media to see how society or creatives model it and how society receives it. When I was having those workplace issues, for instance, I watched the first two seasons of Mad Men. Not so I can download my personality and try to be Don Draper, but because I wanted to see how people think about the corporate environment. I'm of the mind life imitates art more than art imitates life. People are stupid. If you put something on television and tell them that's normal or that's desirable, that's what they're going to mimic. So, what are the memes? What am I supposed to extract from this outside, at least by the end of season 2? Joan is far and away best girl, and I feel for my boy Pete. That's what I went into this visual novel thinking. It's a love story. What tropes, what social scripts, what tender sentiments do people care about? Completely divorced from reality. What trite shit do people like? And reviews sold me this visual novel because it's supposed to be in one way, if you play it one way, it can be that exact trite love story you've seen 1,000 times, or it can be more interesting. And with that in mind, I went through 2 times. The first time making every decision that I would want to make, and the second time making every decision I would want to make but one. But both ending up basically in the same spot. And it's trying to do something meta. And it's the messaging in the meta bits that got me on that sleeper anger. Because it says a lot about society, which is what we live in but we'll get to that. So the visual novel starts you off immediately with two potential routes. On the one hand, you have the childhood friend who has blossomed into the most popular girl in school. And, of course, she still harbors secret romantic feelings for her absolutely dead end loser childhood friend. You're the main character, Guy. And the main character is weird because he's very typical. He's wishy-washy pushover guy who isn't emotionally consistent. You've seen this main character 1,000 times. But this visual novel has a weird fixation on cuckoldry. It self references itself as an NTR classic and then and then brings up getting cucked repeatedly as a core fear of this main character. Now, don't get me wrong, I like me some NTR. To quote a worm, I'm not asking you to hurt me, I am handing you a gun and asking you to shoot me. Please, I would like you to. And to quote a gray fox, hurt me more. But this visual novel has a weird fixation on it as a point of fear for the main character. As in, once you start putting some things together, you need to start interpreting everything the character does as a fear of getting cucked, which is probably a true commentary on the typical heterosexual male experience, but we will get to that too. The other romance option is quirky, sometimes unsettling, most often annoying meta girl. Her life is like a video game. She talks to God because life is a video game. And she exists either to force main character to get with dumb shit childhood friend or to redirect main character to her route. Now, of course, when you are confronted with such compelling options, the only reasonable choice is to try everything in your power to choose neither. This game was advertised to me as having some interesting psychological horror elements if you go off the beaten path, and I saw some spoiler screenshots, so I thought I don't want to deal with fake Miss Perfect or stand in for you're going to do what we tell you to do. So let's see what happens when we pick neither. Well, Meta Girl repeatedly accuses you of being afraid of getting cucked, so she calls God on the phone and tries to rewrite reality so you will for sure never get cucked. And you're allowed to intervene and stop that from happening, which I did, which promptly led to a bad ending, further sticking a finger in your face and saying you're afraid of getting cucked. And that was interesting to me. Not the ending, we'll talk about the endings, they're very similar for the two routes I went down, but my instinct not to let this divine intervention happen. And I opted against it because it's pathetic. And more than a bit, in my cosmology, heretical. I've said before that I would probably take a pill that would adjust me and my thinking, my everything, to suit this reality. I would probably do that. But I would not accept a divine intervention that makes reality suit me. Why? Well, one, it's pathetic. It reminds me of The King of Comedy, that part in which the entire nation apologizes personally to Rupert Pupkin for not appreciating him, his genius, and being mean to him. You as an individual don't matter enough to deserve anything like that, even if you could have it. If there's any fault to go around, it's not reality's fault you don't fit with it. If there is fault to go around, it's your fault you don't fit into the norm. That's on you, if it's on anybody, and I'm not saying it is. So if you could call God and ask for everything you want in exactly the way you want it, it's pathetic. And now that I think about it, it's pathetic mostly because you aren't, in this instance, you aren't getting what you want in the way you want it by any merit of your own. It's being given to you. Reality is being molded to suit a thing that hasn't passed survival of the fittest. I don't like it. And it's strange to me this is the ending the game criticizes you most harshly for. It's criticizing you because it's assuming you're abstaining out of a fear of getting cucked. But on another level, I think it's criticizing you for refusing to play along, which we get to in the other ending. You accept the anti-cucking ritual and let things play out further, and then again, at the very end, abstain. And you get basically the same ending doing it this way, but I find it interesting you are not criticized as harshly in this ending for not playing along, when in this ending you've received so many more reasons not to play along. Both heroines attempt to sexually assault you twice, and it's not pretty or funny played for laughs in either instance. It's really uncomfortable. Childhood friend reveals she cares more about forcing you to feel the way about her she feels about you than she does about you. She cares more about your feelings for her than she does about you, than she does about her friend's health, than she does about anything. She is a totally false psychopath, which, if you're familiar with fake people, you intuit that from the beginning. That's why you abstain in the first route, and then you get called a cuck 500 times. And then you see your suspicions were correct when you let it play out longer. And then the other heroine you find does not care about what you want at all, which again, apparent from the very beginning, stated plainly from the very beginning. All she exists for, literally, is to force you onto one track or the other, by any means necessary. Blackmail, emotional manipulation, physical force. And if you choose neither, again, you are a mega cuck. You somehow managed to get cucked with God's blessing and not to be cucked. It's funny, but it's also long fuse infuriating, because it does say a lot about society. Have you ever considered any real freedoms? Freedoms from the opinion of others, even from the opinions of yourself. What made me angry upon thinking about it is its persistence on not caring about what you think or how you feel. Among people, you're expected to follow one of a few paths, and if you don't, you aren't allowed to play. And what you think and how you feel never matters, whether you engage the way you are expected to or you don't. If you do as you're told, you are promised a saccharine life, which in reality you're not even going to get that saccharine life. You're going to get shit if you do as you're told, but you're at least promised a saccharine life. But if you don't, or if you think and feel something else, if you got that saccharine life, you wouldn't enjoy it the way you're supposed to. If you do anything else, once again, regardless of how you think and feel, if you do something else, people with increasing violence are going to try to force you back onto one of the tracks they want you on. You wonder why I'm aggressive toward my audience. There are tons of reasons, but one of them is people don't actually care what you think or how you feel. They don't care about decorum. Anytime you're doing your own thing, people are going to mob up and try to force you to do something that is socially approved of. If you politely tell them no, which, once again, imposing on somebody else from the outset at all is aggressive. That's one of the reasons I don't like playing these days, because starting that shit at all, even with smiles, is not a smiley thing. So you tell one of these people or these groups of people that you're going to do your own thing politely, they're going to escalate. Because politeness, decorum, that isn't what matters. What matters is you aren't doing what the majority says you should be doing. And if you try to be polite about it and good faith about it, which I was for years, you don't realize you are giving these people, in their minds, the excuse to escalate. So they're going to be escalating, and you don't realize it's a fight. This is true everywhere. I am experiencing this professionally. The difference being, in real life, I am too weak, not crafty enough, not wealthy enough to do instantly what needs to be done. But we are working on that. But this visual novel confronts you with it pretty directly. If you don't want to enter a relationship with the fake, self-centered psychopath, Meta Girl will force you to. Everything in her power try to force you to. And if you stick by your judgment, if you trust yourself, you're shamed for it. It feels like every aspect of reality is trying to convince you not to trust your instincts. So, what I want in life, what I'm going to try to do, is nothing specific. Ultimately, I don't care how life turns out, as long as it turns out the way it's supposed to, in that I am aligned with my instincts and with my interpretations of whatever my God is. As long as I am being true to my instincts and to my little voice in my head, that little pull in my stomach, I don't care how life turns out. Being true to those two things is more important to me than anything. I would like life to be happy. I would like life to be pretty. I would like to have a lot of money. I would like to have a loving family. I would like to have the best relationship in the world. I would love to have the best friends in the world, the nicest house in the world, the best political movement in the world. But if those things are not in the cards, as long as I'm listening to my instincts and my sixth sense, whatever you want to call it, fine. Those two things are more important than anything else. And it seems like every single aspect of reality is engineered to try to make you stray from those two very simple things. Everything in reality is trying to steer you away from them. And it's interesting because with those two things, they're under or beyond even your own thoughts. Have you ever considered any real freedoms? Freedoms from the opinion of others. Freedoms from the opinions of yourself. I realized this. You could... My thoughts aren't me, I think. I think if you removed my thoughts, but kept my instincts and my soul intact, I would be the same person. I would look and act very similar without my thoughts. And in fact, I would probably act purer without my thoughts than I do with them. Your thoughts are a vector the demiurge or the archons or the hylix can use to steer you away from your divine light. Your thoughts are what sever your divine light. Your thoughts are what make you nothing more than a flesh automaton animated by neurotransmitters. This visual novel made me angry because it is a wholesale rejection of your individual independent will. Inasmuch as you have one with the stinky cloud of thoughts coming out of your head. There is a character who exists solely to force you to be with someone you don't want to be with, because based on her actions and character, you shouldn't want to be with, who then shames you if she fails in her mission. You as an individual don't matter outside your willingness or unwillingness to do what you are expected to do, pressured to do. And once again, you find media, the right media at the right time. This is very timely. To wrap up, as much as you can, know yourself and trust yourself. First and foremost. Or, I don't know, just close your eyes, go through the motions, and try to die without regretting everything. Challenge impossible. I will say, no matter how I feel about my life, or how life makes me feel, I don't regret anything. Nothing I would go back and change or do differently if I could. And boy, I can't imagine living like that. That sounds like real torture. Thank God people don't actually do that. Could you imagine spending your entire life dancing to someone else's tune and then realizing that on your deathbed? Or shit, maybe realizing that 10 or 20 or 30 years before you die, and then just having to live with it. Oh man, that sounds really awful. Oh, that sounds so bad. Oh, I'm glad people don't actually do that. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.